What you see on those? What's your perspective, John, on those fires down there in California?
Well, I don't know. I've been following a little bit of what the geoengineering people are saying. They send me something frequently. Dana Wigington or something like that.
Dane Wigington from Geoengineering Watch.
Right, yeah. And
how do I put this on speakerphone?
It sounds like we have Chuck on. Hello, Chuck.
Oh, hi. Is this Chris?
It is. How are you today?
Well, hey, I'm downright lousy, but I'm proud of it.
Absolutely, all day long.
Yeah, so.
Hey, let's do the Bivens warning and get started on the recording. How about that?
Well, you know, the question I have is how do I put my walkie-talkie on the speakerphone? But you more than likely can't tell me over the phone, so don't try.
Yeah, if you want.
Okay, I'm not sure how to tell you.
Yeah, forget it.
If you want to talk, Chuck, you can hit *6. If you want to mute it to where you're not heard, just hit *6 also, and that should back you out, I think.
Okay, I'm going to try that because I don't want to stand here with this thing held to my ear the whole time, okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'll get back with you in a little bit.
Okay, I'll go ahead with the Bivens then. So I think what you just told Chuck, though, will put him, it'll allow him to be heard or not heard, but he's got to have some kind of an icon there on the phone somewhere that says it's a speaker, some way of turning on his speakerphone.
I would think so.
But I can't tell you if I don't know. I don't know the model of the phone. But anyway, so I'm just going to real quick give the Bivens warning. And it'll be pretty obvious what this means when you hear it. This meeting is private, bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance on this call that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present on this call? If you are on this call in order to gather information for any incorporated entity in order to subvert, undermine, overthrow, or otherwise destroy our lawful, peaceable efforts, you'll be pursued in your individual and personal capacity and in your capacity as man for harm or injury or loss you cause your fellow man. And I don't hear anybody. If you're here electronically or otherwise, the same warning applies to you. So if you're an agent of any federal agencies, any state agencies, any local agencies, this applies to you. Either leave the call, shut down the electronic listening capability, or just let us know you're here. Any one of those three will work. And take it away, Chris.
Well, hello, everybody. Tonight's topic of the show is we're going to be talking about several issues that have confronted recently, including rescinding contracts, revoking powers of attorney, pushing back against the 5G grid, traveling in private automobiles, and generally learning to live lawfully rather than legally, because there is a difference. It's huge. It's all the difference in the world. Glad you can join us. This is going to be a little more different than some of the other shows with the gentleman we have coming on by the name of Wendell. Just a little background on Wendell. I've only known him for going on a few months now. I was introduced to him originally about a GVA issue that he was having. And he'll be able to go into more detail about that. But the GVA system we have here is the Golden Valley Electric Association, which a very key point of the name is the very last part where it says association. People need to understand if you hear association anywhere within the names, these are private corporations acting as an association unto itself. They act the same way the private government does. The service corporations acting as governments. They work in association. And what that means is anybody that is a willful participant within an association has the right to have done to them anything that the association lays down as guidelines. A lot of people have heard about homeowners associations. That's one good example because many have heard of that. How much power they have over people's lives on property and land that they own and purchase, but have obviously gotten tied into a contract with these guys somehow, or should I say bozo somehow. And they operate under tax agreement sometimes. Sometimes they'll come out and ask you one way, shape, form, or fashion if you want to belong to the association because you get these pool dues, memberships. They make it seem really, really nice, because slaves are pretty well taken care of here in the United States up until, this point now when there's no more money to steal. So a brief introduction on Golden Valley is also a few years back, our Valley Electric Association is advertises itself as a cooperative, which is the way it was founded up until a few years back, whenever they incorporated and basically rolled underneath Touchstone Energy, which is a very huge, large conglomerate, which is absolutely a subsidiary of, you guessed it, the Rothschilds, the same people that are behind this PG&E thing happening over in California right now. So just like there, the smart meters are being rolled out here this year. They've really, really just worked hard to pump these things out as quickly as they could. And for any of those that actually even think these things are smart, maybe think again. The best way to think of these things is a telephone and a Wi-Fi router built into one. So they're neither smart because they're pumping electricity and they're also stealing information about you. And they have the capacity to be changed because it's basically a computer. It can be changed at will to look for whatever it wants to look for, whatever kind of information that it plans to sell, which is worth much more than the power they're selling you. What do you think is going on with Apple? All these corporations stealing everything digitally right now. It's the same thing. It's an information war, truly. So GVA in the last few years has been ruled by bar lawyers, and Corey Borgeson is one of them. We have a couple other gentlemen in there. John Burns is another one. I don't want to leave their names out. These are truly cretins. These are treasonous people living in our community, working on an electric board, acting like they're doing a favor for the community here. And it's absolutely not. And just for an idea, these people are paid, both of these people are making more than the President of the United States, Donald Trump, if he was taking a paycheck even. So a town of about 30 to 40,000 people are paying at least two individuals within this electric corporation double, almost triple what the President of the United States makes, which I think he's got a little bit larger of a job. The chicanery is incredible. So one of the things they're trying to do is pump out these smart meters, but they're also trying to take as many chunks of land. Think what the railroad did back in the day. When it was expanding, it got a deal to where it could steal land left and right, and how did they get people off the land is no concern, right? So it's almost the same thing happening now, except they're doing it for these easements. And they're changing what these easements are and what they can contain and access by basically anybody they deem to be a subcontractor or even have a valid reason for them to go out on people's homes and properties and trespass. They've used this particular thing against the gentleman that's going to be speaking here in a few minutes, Wendell. Do you happen to be on yet, Wendell?
He is working at trying to get on. This is your producer, Chris. He's working at trying to get on right now. He'll be here in a minute or two.
Excellent. Sounds good. So they use this against Wendell. Wendell. Hello, who joined us? If you hit *6, you can mute or unmute yourself to announce yourself. So they recently used this against Wendell. And in dealing with the board there, he had solicited my help to help him write a notice, basically a notice of liability against them for their trespassing as well as their continued attempts to cause him harm and claim that there was an emergency up into the point to use that as, grounds for it, whether it's your security or saying it's for the kids or whatever. That's always the fallback that they go on. Oh, it's an emergency. We've got to do this. But I think they kind of ran across their match a little bit with Wendell. Wendell is a very honorable man, and he is absolutely one of the purest men and purest souls that I know. And the way he approaches things is one of the ways I can see that maybe we should be talking about approaching things ourselves. He does it with the aid of the Spirit for sure. And if you've never heard a man speak, you need to hear this man speak to people, whether it be in a courtroom or a setting like a GVA board meeting, which if you care to listen, you can go to freethepeopleak.com, and we have a link somewhere in there that has Wendell speaking at a GVA meeting about them trying to get this easement from him and repair a pole that was hanging dangerously low across the river, using that as the reason to make this an emergency, turn into a bad thing. So a little more about Wendell.
I think he is here. I've heard him kind of come in and out a couple of times. Wendell, are you here? Okay, he's probably still trying to get in through the voice over IP link.
Very good.
This is Chuck. I'm with you.
Okay.
Excellent, Chuck. And, I think many of us that are have been meeting with the Common Law Group, which Wendell is also a portion thereof, seems to, I think we've been learning quite a bit from it. We understand the futility of trying to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the UCC code commercial system that kind of tried to surround the common law system to try to squash it out in a way, if you want to say. It's giving a real possibility. It's telling them who we are and where we belong, and his approach to things is just, I think it's really going to blow you away. Very simple and very easy. One of the people on the line here, Chuck, if you care to say a few words, kind of like for an example, what happened last week with the letter that you had to write, and then after we had a little discussion, and with Wendell's words, it was rewritten. Can you?
Yeah, well, I did send that. I did hand deliver it to the district attorney's office here on 2nd Avenue, and I then sent out copies of it to the governor and the lieutenant governor, the ombudsman, the representatives, all the representatives and senators from the local area, and to the Speaker of the House. And I think that's it's about 15 or 16 people I've sent it out to as copies. But whether it means anything to them, I have no idea. I've never heard back from any of them because I did put my phone number on it. Never received any mail either. Okay? So that's where that's at. And, by the way, one of them went to Judge McConaughey. And, yeah, so one went to him, so he's got it. At any rate, the letter very simply says, and you know what it says, but I'll say it over the air, something like, tell me who I harmed so as I can straighten this mess out. And as yet, the last time in court, there was nobody came forward to claim that I had harmed them. They're just going through their charade, their fraud. So that's where that's at. But hey, let me read you this charge I have here, okay? Okay. Okay, the complaint states that on or about the 8/14/18 at or near Fairbanks in the 4th Judicial District, State of Alaska, the above-named defendant did unlawfully commit the offense of felony relating to title, registration, identification number, and removal and representation of vehicle when he, okay, that's where it ends. Then there's this here little subline down here, footnote, I guess you could call it. The full charge wording has not yet been set for Alaska Statute 28.10.491A. Unable to print charge. So they charged me apparently with something they can't even write down. So I find that rather interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds like personage, criminality. There's a lot of different words for what that is.
Yeah. Well,
fraud maybe?
Yeah, well, the whole thing is fraud, I'm sure. So at any rate, say again?
Ab initio, from the very beginning. None of it can be good if any of it was found upon a lie. You know, it's all foul.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad situation. And then, of course, the cops on charge number 2. Oh, by the way, on that charge there that they can't write down, I can get 1 to 5 years in prison for, and the fine is $500 to $5,000. So that's what I can get for that crime, which they can't write down. Yeah,
but they can't even tell you what they're charging you with.
Apparently not. And then they charge number 2 is interesting. Trooper Harrison attests to the following and state, on August the 14th at approximately 18:23 hours, I initiated a traffic stop on a maroon 80s model Ford Escort for having no license plate. Okay, I initially activated my emergency lights. Well, I don't know how not having a license plate constitutes an emergency. And so he activated my emergency light at southbound Richardson Highway prior to Lakeview Drive. I observed the driver in the vehicle looking in his rearview mirror, indicating he saw me. Well, shoot sakes, am I supposed to immediately assume he wants me to jump off the road and into the ditch or something? And so, but the emergency light. So I continued, I'm driving, seat of my pants, feeling my car. Is there something wrong with my car? Is the bumper falling off? That would create an emergency. Am I running on a flat tire? Do I have a wheel wobbling where the bearing's about ready to come off and the wheel fly off? Or what kind of an emergency is this guy considering? And after a while, a whole half mile later, I pulled over. And he said it took me a minute and a half, but at 40 miles an hour, that's only 45 seconds, because that's about the speed I was traveling at. Okay. Then, okay.
So you mean to tell me it took you about 45 minutes to a minute and a half to come to a complete safe stop in about
45 seconds. Yeah, 45 seconds.
That
after I
sound
figured out what the heck was. Yeah. And then he says, all traffic behind vehicle headed ahead of me began yielding and pulling off to the side of the road. Geez, I don't remember anybody doing that, but I do remember one car moving from the left lane. It's a 4-lane highway, remember? And he moved from the left lane into the right lane. I don't think he went off the road at all, but then again, I don't know for sure. You know, I'm just what I remember. I next activated my siren for a considerable amount of time, along with my emergency lights, which there was no emergency. I think basically that word emergency lights means you use them when there's an emergency, but I'm not sure about that. The driver of the vehicle continued to look in his rear and side view mirror at me, indicating he saw me, but still failed to. Is somebody trying to say something to me?
I'm sorry, I just had some background noise here. Wendell's online.
Oh, hey, Wendell. We'll get you on here in just a second, okay?
Gotcha.
Okay. But still failed to stop his vehicle. Eventually, approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds after initiating the traffic stop, the vehicle pulled to the side of the road. The final stop location was approximately 1/2 mile from where I initially activated my emergency lights. So at any rate, I'm just wondering, this Trooper Harris thinks that he should blink his lights and I should jump off the road for him. I don't know what the heck their thinking is, but and there was no emergency. He indicated no emergency when I talked to him. And I don't know specifically if I asked him if there was an emergency, but I might have. Okay? So at any rate, oh, by the way, that one carries a minimum of 1 year and then a maximum of 5 years also. So that means I'm looking at a grand total of 10 years in prison for
some drummed up charges that are just absolutely incredulous.
Yeah, and exercising my right to travel, point A to point B. Yeah.
Right.
So at any rate.
And what was it that you read in the court the other day that, and then the judge asked you he wanted you to file a, what was it he was wanting you to do?
I don't know what he was wanting me to do because it's all mute to them anyway because they have that selective hearing. And I don't know what he asked me to.
It sounded like Japanese.
Yeah, well, for me it sounds like it. You know, I don't speak that language, so I don't speak that. I'm getting learn a little bit about legalese, but I'm still pretty dang on ignorant when it comes to legalese. So, and one of the things that I did right off the bat was declare the common law court of record here and now open and in session. And I do believe I have a right to that. It says it was in the Declaration, in the Bill of Rights. Yeah. So.
We're always in court. It's our own courts.
Yeah, that's your court. What is it? The Magna Carta says, henceforth the writ called presby shall not be issued that will deprive anyone of a holding or a free man of his court. So I think that still stands. Yeah.
It still stands, but I think I come to see the problem too But I think you've alleviated part of that by going and removing yourself from their system with the removal of the driver's license and registrations. So with that notice, it should have taken care of that.
Yeah, so the notice, I did the notice for the registration, but I haven't done a notice for driver's license yet. And it's something that I'm going to get in there. And as soon as I get some wordings for it, and make it from the beginning also. Just get rid of it clean back to 1964 when I got my first driver's license here in Alaska. So, unbeknownst to me, of course, I didn't know I didn't have to have one. So.
Oh, what? They never gave you a full and open, transparent contract with full knowledge?
Well, not from what I understand. You know, what I understand, someone somewhere along the line says when you sign that driver's license, you're signing a 6-page contract that you will act as if you're a commercial driver. I'll follow all the rules of what is it, Alaska Statutes 28. So, which is the statutes for a commercial driver. And then there's, I looked up recreational vehicle in the statutes. And what triggered me on that was when I was reading 28, it made a description of a snow machine. And when you have to have a driver's license for a snow machine. But it made reference to it as a recreational vehicle. So I looked up the word recreational vehicle in the statutes, and it turns out to be Alaska statute number 43. And I don't know but there's about 7 descriptions of a recreational vehicle. And one of the descriptions is it has a saddle on it, and you ride astride it, and it has a motor. Sounds pretty much like a motorcycle to me. I don't know. That sounds like a recreational vehicle to me, a motorcycle. So, at any rate, they have quite a number of definitions of recreational vehicle, and the very last one says any vehicle with living quarters. Now, when that one cop pulled me over here, I don't know whether it's 17 or 16, I don't know, and I told him I was riding in my recreational vehicle, and then I told him the definition of a recreational vehicle is any vehicle with living quarters. And so he looked around inside my vehicle, and he says, I don't see any living quarters in there. And I said to him, does it look like I'm dead in here? I'm living in the living quarters of this vehicle. Well, you got that compartment out in the front called the engine compartment, and then you got that area towards the back of it called the trunk for storage, and then you got between the two the living quarters of the vehicle. So at least I think I was in the living quarters. But then again, maybe he thought I was dead in there. Or maybe I was just an entity, treating me as if I'm an entity or an artificial person, not alive. So, but at any rate, that one's over. Well, you got anything else you want to ask me about this full-fledged fraud?
That's a good way to put it. It absolutely is. Absolutely is. Well, maybe we'll come back and touch a bit on that right quick. Let's see if we can get Wendell on here. Does it sound good?
Sounds fine to me, and if somebody calls in and wants to ask questions, I'm available to answer, okay? By the way, how long does this show go?
It goes for 2 hours.
Oh, my God. I haven't eaten supper yet.
You're going to fade away, I think, brother.
Okay.
Talk at you. Thank you very much, Chuck.
Okay, I'll hang out here.
You on there, Wendell?
Yeah, I'm standing by here, Chris. Sorry I was late showing up there, but I had a bunch of activities I had to take care of.
No worries. I know I was pushing snow up until the last, literally 5 minutes before I needed to get on, so totally understand. Well, I kind of did a little introduction on you. Would you mind giving an introduction to yourself on how long you've been up here and from there?
Well, I've been in Alaska for many years. Actually, before I moved on the land that I am still on. Moved on the land here in 1969, and we've been here ever since. And we've had power all that time. And the original homesteader had actually had over a mile of line constructed to put power to the property we're on. So that was a real plus when we first showed up on the property here to have power. Live like everybody else, even though we did move out here by riverboat. There's no roads here. And the river, we were unable to get a road to our place until 1975, when the pipeline pushed the road across Ordale Road there to the north side of the river. But that's a little basis of my situation. I don't know where we need to start. I guess the issue and the thing that we were to talk about is having lost my power, because I didn't want to give Golden Valley an easement across my property. It originally put the pole in from the river and had maintained it from it. And they had a go around about 20-some years ago. They actually took my primary power away and put a secondary line across the river. And that was because there was not any easement at that time. Although I would give them permission to cross my property, I didn't want to give them an easement. And so they brought that back up again here this summer, late summer and fall. And began with a hazardous wire condition. The wire was so big and heavy, the secondary line crossing, that it had sagged down to the area where they deemed it a hazard to people passing up and down the river. And so, which is all right, I gave them permission to repair their line. They insisted on this easement and for me to sign that and to give them a swath across my property. I elected not to do that. After some ado, it was first cut off, and then he actually physically cut the wire and left it hanging in the river. And so that's our physical position at this time. We're running our own power at this time, and we're getting by with batteries, a small generator, and an inverter. And I found that it's probably notably healthier for me. I don't seem to have that RF waves bouncing around here, and I actually feel better. Where do you want me to go from there, Chris?
So you said I think there were a couple of times that they had trespassed against you too. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, they had a general easement across my property. I guess they call it a blanket easement. And a little over a year ago, they actually mailed that back to me, a certified removal of a blanket easement. And so at that time, I figured they had no right just coming on my property at their will. And however, I elected them, if they'd notify me, if they had any business, that I'd be happy to allow them to cross my property. Well, the first time there was an engineer out here facing the place, and I confronted him as a trespass. And the second time, was when they put the smart meter on the pole, which was across the river. They weren't sufficient just to put the smart meter on. They had to come around and come up and put a door hanger on my door. So there was another trespass. They had to go out of the way over 6 miles to do that, supposedly just to notify me that they'd put the smart meter on. So that's 2 trespasses, which in my discussion with them, they don't think that they can trespass. They think that they have the right to do whatever they feel like, even though they absolutely have no easement whatsoever on my property at this time.
Do you feel that GVA is an association, a corporation, or a cooperative in their dealings with you?
Well, I don't seem to have any input in the situation, so that rules out the corporate or the co-op pretty well one way, it seems to me like.
And it seems like they use the terminology of what they were according to the point they were trying to make with you when you had that meeting with them as well. I guess UCC law.
Say again?
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we did hash all these things out in an over an hour-long meeting, which we recorded, the trespass and all the requirements of me. And they after being addressed 2 or 3 times, did they trespass? Do they have the right to trespass? They refused to answer those questions. And so I guess because they didn't answer them, that concluding that they figure they can, I think that's really a problem.
Well, according to their uniform code of commercial liability insurance system craziness that they've got set up, their little legalese system, they're able to shift, basically lie, and say whatever they want to, aren't they? Does that seem what it is?
Well, yes, and then when they get one man that's yielding too much ground, they bring in their reinforcements. I was talking to Brian Youngberg, the number 2 man at Golden Valley originally, and then he finally turned me over to their law department, John Burns, and he's the only one that has talked to me since, talking to board members, and they won't talk to me, and nobody else but the legal department will address me at this time.
So I know there's been some issue with them trying to address you according to a fictitious name, creating personage against you, and it seems like they've almost cut off communications with you because they won't call you by your name?
Well, yeah, they don't seem to understand the difference between at least they won't acknowledge the difference between the corporate man, or the straw man, the all caps name, and the real man. And I keep telling them that I cannot talk to their corporation, a dead entity, and I must talk to a man. And so I address John Burns as a man, not as a corporate member. And they won't address me with the same respect. Keep addressing me as Mr. or the all capital name. And so we have, it seems like they're unable to talk to me in the real man.
And I know also Representative Tammy Wilson, part of their government system service corporation election type thing, has maybe gone to them once or twice to discuss this issue about you, or what kind of resolve, or what have you found out through there?
Well, I did talk to Tammy Wilson and forward her my communications with John Burns, and she seemed to have gone over them and read them well, and noted the things that I required and requested to be put on the easement. She did draft an easement that I would have signed, which included my name, other in the proper spelling and syntax, capitalization. I use the non-capitalized name, first name, middle name, 4 spaces, and the family name, the last name. They refuse to use that. They claim that that's not my legal name. And I claim it's my legal name, a lawful name. They talk about legal, I talk about lawful. And that's the name that was given to me by my family. And the first and second name, middle name, are my names. The last name is my family name. That is lawfully given to me by my family. So I claim those. They will not acknowledge that and continue to want to have access across my property. And they've modified their easement considerably, but they still have not acknowledged the things that who I am.
Remembering that whenever I read your easement, you wouldn't happen to have that, or did you send that in so we could post that online? The way the easement read?
You'd like for me to read that?
Yeah, I kind of would. It's pretty invasive, and I think it kind of gives a snapshot of these people and how evil they are, their future plans here.
Okay. I agreed to this easement, which I drafted myself. And another thing that they want an easement in perpetuity. And I want to give them one as long as they're utilizing the line, and I should have the right to rescind that and not to continue to take power from them. And at that time, they would the easement would be terminated.
As should be your right via contract.
Yes, and all these easements are only one-way contracts. They only have a place for you to sign and what you give away, and it has no place for them to sign guaranteeing their part of the contract. So it's really not a contract. It's actually just flat you giving them something without any consideration whatsoever.
Absolutely, because you can't contract with a... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Their bylaws and the things that they quote to me is that they have the right to demand easement and a blanket, or not a blanket, but a specific easement for perpetuity across my land. And of course, that is addressing new installations. I've been hooked up for 49 years personally to that power line, and the power line has been in before that. And so I don't know how they can address me with something that they've come up with in latter times here, as far as a requirement for new people being hooked up on the line. I actually was minding my own business and living my life, and here they come along, and because there is a supposedly a sagging line, it becomes a hazardous situation, and then they want me to give part of my land away to them. No consideration.
So allowing a hazardous situation to sit out there and actually be their liability because they're paid for the maintenance of those lines too, through the fees, and then try to use that against you to force you expediently to give away your land, probably quicker than most people would even think about it, And the timing was impeccable too, it seems to me too, where here we are coming into winter months. It's getting cold, it's getting dark, and you got a homestead with no other access to power out there other than your generator system that you put together, and they terminated you. They cut your line. I saw it. I drove up literally maybe an hour after it happened, I guess, and they dropped your line in the river, thus creating another hazard. Was it ever for a payment issue? Did you ever have any payment problems, late payments or things? Or you sure that nothing like that, huh?
No, there was never quoted a late payment whatsoever. That was never part of any of the considerations. The only consideration, the thing that they had against me, was that I did not give them an easement. And,
so this sounds like a breach of contract.
Say again?
This sounds like a breach of contract.
Well, I think that they have an obligation to serve me power, and they terminated it without anything having been done on my part, so I would say that very definitely that's what I believe too. And you're talking about a dangerous situation after they dropped that power line in the River, left it there. The telephone line was left up there, which was a much smaller wire, and something that could not be seen very well. And that actually, for as far as aircraft and different things, it become a much greater hazard because they could see the larger wire, but it would be almost impossible to see the small wire that they left there, and it's still there. So the hazard does still continue in a greater degree than before they began.
But they were doing it for your safety, or the safety of somebody, huh?
Well, I guess only electricity is a safety issue. They don't see the strangulation or the bringing down of an aircraft as being dangerous.
So where does it sit right now? What's the very last communication you've had?
The very last communication, I don't want to speak of it too much, but I've given them an opportunity to settle with me on the private, and I've told them and reminded them of the different papers that I've communicated to them, and I had trouble thinking of the name of the one we posted to them personally, giving them a liability, notice of liability to all 11 members, agents, or whatever we're going to call them, that have been dealing with me. There's 11 in total that we gave a warning that they were causing me hazardous conditions and that had a responsibility to me. We reminded them of that. Yes.
So good. In the notice of liability, they were personally named, not just the company, because it's not the corporation that deals with it private. So you personally named the men and women that sometime act as whatever position they hold for GVEA. You personally told them. You cleared the air and gave them notice of liability and claim of harm, thus opening them up for lawsuit, correct, on an individual basis.
That was the intent, to remind them that they were individually liable, and that has been done a number of weeks ago now. And they elect to allow this lawyer or Golden Valley to speak for them, evidently, because none of them seem to be taking it very serious in dealing with their own liability.
Isn't John Burns, isn't he the in-house lawyer they hired so they did not have to go to outside litigation and firms? But they ended up, got John Burns on, and then he ended up hiring another corporation of attorneys, bar attorneys, thus giving even more money of the GVA members away, I think.
Well, he is the chief counsel for Golden Valley. I don't know how many people he would have working for him. I met one of his aides. I imagine they've got all kinds of lawyers that they're bidding calling.
So any of the paperwork that you saw, did you notice that any of it had touchstone energy or anything like that, or did everything you have came through just as a GVEA?
That's all that they are acknowledging in any communication with me is just the Golden Valley Electric Association, which they claim as a co-op. It's
Absolutely not.
In talking to their board members, or one specific board member, he said that they have the power to elect and to put down the CEO. And but he wouldn't. I talked to him just yesterday, and he would not discuss with me any of the points of the case. He could put it all in the hands of John Burns.
Do you feel that any of these men are acting in a responsible manner as men, or do they not see themselves as men anymore, just only as actors for the company?
They only are actors for the company. They have no mind of their own. They just do as they're told. And no responsibility that they've shown towards me whatsoever.
You know, that's kind of dangerous. It almost sounds just like what happened at the Nuremberg trials.
That seems to be a lot of similarity. It doesn't matter if it's hurting somebody. Somebody told them to do that, so that's what they do. It doesn't matter whether it's fair or just, right, just what they do because it serves their purpose.
So they're not serving the members.
Yeah, I don't see any member input whatsoever. They have once in a while they supposedly allow the members to vote on something, but they have to pay the members to go there because no member that I ever known felt that they had anything that they did that caused any difference with anything that Golden Valley has done.
Right. You know, there's something that happened this year for the GVA meeting, and I'd kind of like to bring it up. I think this is a good time. Actually, let's go back 2 meetings prior. It's about when we started a newspaper, Free the People AK, and nobody was talking about these idiot meters. You know, they were fixing to be coming online, and they weren't even discussing them. And when we exposed them and brought some of the hazards to light and published on it, then they kind of started to talk about it a little bit, and they put out a few little mailers that were very subtle and very, you know, oh, it's all good and there's no harm, and you know, they don't catch your house on fire. They're not UL listed, but that's okay, you know, even though your insurance can't write a policy on them. All these things to make them seem good. So fast forward a year in advance. Whenever we got time to have the board meeting this year, or whatever they want to call it, where they pay off people and give them freebies so they come and show up and make it look like it's a legitimate thing, but give everybody a few minutes to speak if they want you to or not. I can tell you for a fact they've not allowed me to speak in the past, purposefully. But there was an issue that was brought up in our town, literally a week or two beforehand, and it was involving the FNSB borough. That if anybody listening is unaware, that's called the Fairbanks North Star Borough, which is not even a county. It is a private corporation acting as a local government here in our Fairbanks region, and they are servicing a particular facility called the Mary Cy Recreation Center, where a lot of people like to go and swim and take showers and whatnot. And according to them, it was in disrepair to the tune of about $3.5 million. So the mayor, Carl Castle, who used to be on Parks and Recreation years ago that he's drawn a retirement from and also getting paid as a mayor at the same time, put up this brilliant idea. Well, let's just replace all these pools. Let's put it in one facility. You know, we can't afford $3.5 million, but you know what? We can get a grant where we steal from other taxpayers and fund a $36 or $38 million liability in our town, which after the inflation and everything that's happening, it'll be 70 or maybe 100 million by the time that liability comes. So what happened was this inflamed our community, and it has nothing to do at all with GVEA, the Electric Association. What was spoken about at the meeting? You got it. The Mary Cy Center was the point of contention that took over the meeting. Nothing on smart meters. Nothing on none of that. It was actually, and I got to hand it to them, you know, they're smart boogers. These are some shady characters. The Mary Cy Center, it was a total psy-op that they pulled to where they never had to express anything about the smart meters, how fast they're rolling them out, the health dangers that have been brought up, and also the notice of liabilities that we've been using against them all the way up through the governor in the state here, including the RCA. That was totally locked out of the conversation and totally ignored. So no legitimacy on their part whatsoever is the point. You know, can we open it up for a couple of questions, Wendell? If anybody has any particular questions about GVEA, I'd like to also ask you to speak a little bit about your other thing that you have going on, if you would. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll put some questions. I'll try and answer them.
Perfect. Anybody online that hit *6, you can unmute yourself and also mute yourself. But if you have any questions for Wendell here about the GVEA and his particular situation, any comments, any concerns, please announce yourself and speak up.
Well, I might add that what they've done to me is an eye-opener as to what they can do to just about anybody they want, just because they decide that's what they want to do. Seems like the members, individuals, can be cut off, or they can be just about whatever they want, include raise the rate of your power. 2 months that they billed me for power after my smart meter was put in, I noticed that I did have an increase in the cost of my power. And so not any question that they're just doing what they want to do.
Wasn't that one of the things that they used to pull the wool over people's eyes for the smart meters or the idiot meters was, it's going to reduce the rates and we don't have to pay these meter readers anymore, but they're not going to lay off any of the meter readers. They're going to find new things for them to do, I guess.
Oh.
I have a question.
Hello?
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I was just wondering how, I was looking online just now, this is Maria, and just trying to link up Touchstone Energy with GVEA. How did you guys come across that information?
Under their Touchstone partners, it'll show them listed underneath there. And they kind of act like as an umbrella company, congregator of cooperatives, so to say.
Yeah.
So
I looked up Touchstone Energy, and I didn't find Golden Valley, and I searched, I got to a place in my web search that showed cooperative.com, and it's an article, Go Co-op Smart Growth, and it's talking about, and we know that sustainability and smart growth is part of Agenda 21. And this says, create sustainable community development by building from within. And it says, sometimes the obvious bears restating. The communities that electric cooperatives serve must be active participants in creating and managing smart growth. So they're basically saying on this website, you go down a little ways and it explains how the local community borrowed money. And so this is the way that they're going to push smart growth from within, from the inside.
Absolutely.
I wasn't able to link it up with, make the link yet between Touchstone and GVA, but I want to find that. But I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, we pulled it up in the past. I'm sorry. I guess we should have put that in show notes. You're absolutely right. The stupid meters, they are produced by a little company called Silver Springs Networks. If you've ever looked at one, I wouldn't stand that dang close to one anyway. Is Silver Springs Networks. You look up Silver Springs Networks, it is a company owned by none other than Mr. Climate Change himself, Al Gore. The way these things come into our communities is not necessarily from borrowing money. It's the fact that the smart meter company will come in and say, listen, we'll give you all of these things, and this is what you're going to be able to do with them. You'll be able to sell information that's going to be more valuable than the rates that you're charging for the electricity, and et cetera, et cetera. Where we always are getting screwed is called a little something called terms of condition. And that's where they hide the dirty details. They'll say, oh, this isn't going to cost anything. Oh, it's free. Oh, it'll end up reducing rates. Yeah. Wrong. All of it's a lie. The fact is, terms and conditions, it may initially seem free, and the subcontractors that they lose the liability of installing these things by instead of them installing them themselves is a negated thing now. So therefore, they try to lose all liability of installing these non-UL meters that are trying to hook us up to these terms and conditions that they've agreed to on our behalf, even though they're not on our behalf. It's only for the corporate behalf. It's absolutely sinister what's happening, and you're absolutely right. It's United Nations Agenda 21, 2030 movement into our communities. Most people are unaware, or maybe be aware, that governments cannot do business with NGOs, non-governmental businesses. So United Nations actually has their own. It used to be called ICLEI, and now they've changed it to where I think it's called local growth or local smart or one of these ridiculous things. But it was actually brought into our community by none other than Mayor Luke Hopkins a while back. And it just shows you that exactly what I'm saying, that the Fairbanks North Star Borough is a corporation, as they all are, and not a government, because they were the ones that brought them in and allowed dealings with them. If they would have been a government, it would have been unlawful, and therefore they could have not done that. But they're a corporation, so they did. And they brought United Nations agenda into our community, and it's been taking a toll and wrecking our community since. The taxations are being pushed up. The cost of everything is being pushed up. They're trying to drive people from the land. They haven't got to the point where they're burning us out like they're doing in California right now with these DEW weapons, which is absolutely horrendous. It makes me ill. The last few days I've been, everybody needs to pray for these people down there. These people are being burned, murdered in their homes to clear out this country that these people want to turn into a zero footprint area, zero carbon footprint area. What is zero carbon footprint? Because you and I and all of us, we're all carbon. Does it mean that they don't want us either? Is that you, John? You want to step in?
Are you talking to me?
Oh, yeah. I thought you wanted to butt in there for a second.
No, I didn't. I didn't mean to, but I'll respond. Of course, I'm carbon. I eat carbohydrates and so forth. It's difficult to know what those people are confronted with down there. I have seen videos about Santa Rosa, I think it was. It was very discriminate as far as what got burnt. It didn't burn paper or shoes or whatever, but it burned everything else. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it's weird. And some people think it was started through beam weaponry, so forth. But my comment back to Wendell's topic there would be, and I think you covered a good bit there that I wasn't aware of, Chris, in saying that, in realizing and bringing out the fact that we are not dealing here with lawful government. We're dealing with corporations which don't deal with living people. That sounds weird, and that's one reason why we have difficulty getting a message across to other people. But I wonder, as I heard talking about the easement, what is the wording on this easement? I don't think it was ever really read out, and I'm not sure how long it would be, but the wording of an easement, like everything else that is legal, you may have to check out every word practically that's used in it. But that's my comments. I yield for someone else.
If we have no other comments, get back to Wendell here. Sorry to run away with that little diatribe there, Wendell. Would you mind sharing your other storm front, your battlefront that you're dealing with illegalities and the magistrates here in this town?
Well, I've had different traffic violations I've dealt with in the past here, and one of the latest ones I've dealt with, I was of the mind to not show driver's license, registration, or insurance. Merely told them that I was not a U.S. citizen, that I was traveling. And I really offered not much more than that. And I advised him that I didn't want to offer anything against myself, and that I was a traveler, and it seemed like that kind of makes them upset. They call in reinforcements, and I was not alert enough to keep him from reaching through the door, a window, and opening my door. I didn't let that bother me, and just sat there. And I made a reference to his supervisor, whom I knew personally when he was a kid. I don't know if that made any difference or not, but it seemed like I had all the things I didn't show him. I did have a driver's license. I did have registration. I did have insurance. I didn't show it to him. It gives you a little more strength in a way, because you got a backup, I guess. So, but I found that it is not their business to require that of you, and I didn't give it to them, and I found that not giving it to them, it gives them no opportunity to have jurisdiction over you. That's the reason they want you to give your driver's license, because it immediately gives them jurisdiction. And when you don't give them any of those things, they really have nothing to go on. Even though he looked on my license plates and and called his supervisors and knew everything about me. I didn't give him anything. To make the story short, he ended up by giving me 3 tickets with my proper with a name on it in all caps, and he stuck them through the window. At that time, I had locked my door and rolled up my window to just a SWAT. And basically, he had enough with me, and he went his way. And within 2 days, I had written him a letter and told him that I, man, did not desire to contract with him, and asked if I had done anything to harm anyone, that please come forward and acknowledge that, and I would be willing to pay for any damage or any harm that I had done to anyone. And I mailed that to them, and they refused to accept it, send it back. So I just simply made a copy of it, went down to the clerk, and gave them a copy of the tickets, unsigned, unmarked, with the same letter. They stamped it, received. That's the last I heard of it until about a week ago. It was over 2 months that I never heard from them. I got 3 little postcards the other day, and they invited me to simply pay the fines that were indicated on the ticket. Threatened my permanent fund and 2 things like that. I merely returned those by return mail. They didn't have them properly addressed in all capital names, and they had changed the spelling of my name. They changed the I and a G around. They changed the letter or number on the mailing address. And I just simply refused the mailing, sent it back to them, and accused them of mail fraud. That's been another 2 or 3 weeks since that's happened, and I haven't heard from them. Checked the court records, and I find that they have no listing of any charge against me whatsoever in the court records. So they just keep kind of throwing a fish out there and thinking I'll bite on it. But they really don't seem to have any teeth in what they're doing because they have no jurisdiction. They gave them none. So that seems to be a victory, but time will tell. They have a long memory. Field?
I believe you're right. They sometimes they do have a long memory. This Babylonian system of corruption that we're living with and under almost. It's long-term goals. You know, they trap into everybody else into short-term memory through being distracted and busy. But yeah, they know what's going on. Wendell, there was one other thing that. Sorry, go ahead, John.
What then is the remedy? I think I know, but I would like to know what someone else thinks is the remedy.
You care to answer that, Wendell?
Well, I think that some of the keys that I have found, we are to offer no excuse whatsoever. That's their word. That's their precision. That's their perception of the case. So what? Let them talk on. Let them write it down. We offer no excuse whatsoever. As soon as we do offer an excuse, we enter into their court, and they're therefore under their jurisdiction. We offer no excuse, but simply offer to pay for any damages if a man will come forward and swear to the damage, testify to that fact, and offer to pay for that. It seems like they just dropped the ball right there, because nobody can do that because they're not man. They are a corporation. Only a man can come forward and testify. Police officer cannot testify to anything. Cannot be the accuser and the testifier of facts. So there's nobody there to charge you. End of the case.
They're just hoping you go with it.
They hope you go with it. They hope you'll make an argument. They hope you make an excuse. They hope you struggle. They hope you get scared. You'll jump through the hoop that they want you to. When you do, like you stuck your head in the rabbit noose. Don't do it. No excuse. Don't need to go there.
Sounds like they're preying off the people.
That's the position of a man. A man is there to take care of any damage, and he's responsible. So if anybody can come forward and say he did something to injure somebody, he'd be man enough to take care of this, whatever the charge is, or whatever the damage is. He isn't. That's where they step in and think that they got to do something.
A man is self-governed.
Of course, the basis for all this is actually the scriptures. Teach us a position. You know, we injure a man, we can make it right. And if we haven't injured a man, and nobody says we have, then there's no problem.
Wendell, would you mind expanding a little bit on of how the laws are actually derived from the Bible?
Well, as a Bible-believing Christian, taking my marching orders from the New Testament, Ephesians, Philippians, and Colossians, I find that I have been offered grace for my sins, for my trespasses. So I should be willing to give grace to somebody else also. And the law is something that I don't want judging me. And so the thing that we see in the Scriptures is grace and mercy. And that's what we want to give to our fellow man. But those who are not trying to please the Lord, not following the Scriptures, they seem like they have to fall under the law. Law is not for the just, but for the unjust. Just man, he's not under the law. Only the man who is unjust. A man becomes just because he's justified. Gift of God. He no longer has a heart to do bad, has a heart to please God and to do right. The unregenerate man has a heart to do what he wants to do evil, to hurt, to take, to steal. So that's what the law is addressed towards. Law is addressed to the man who is evil. So that seems to be a paradox. But a man who is justified by the Lord Jesus Christ is not under the law, but grace. The man who commits sin, the man who is evil, the man who kills, steals, lies, he is under the law. The law, I think that's where the common law comes from. That's what it addresses. It addresses the evil man, and who breaks the commandments. I don't know if that's clear or not to you there, but maybe you have a question.
That's the first time I've heard. Oops, go ahead.
No, go ahead, John.
That's the first time I've heard it, and was aware that Wendell is opposed to law in concept. Is that correct? For my to take that as true?
I didn't catch the term that you used. The law is what?
That the law is not appropriate for you to be concerned with. The reason I say that is common law. That is what we have been pursuing as an alternative jurisdiction to the corporation, the de facto. So common law, I think, as far as I've been able to see, now I realize that it's conceivable when you think about law, if it is something acceptable to all people living in a particular area, that's in my opinion, that may not be quite sufficient for all situations. But certain tenets, such as the non-aggression principle of the libertarians, that's quite important, and which includes fraud and threats and so forth. So I really don't have, if it's well founded in that regard, I don't have any hesitation to say, well, I will be subject to the law if others follow the same principles. And I think that I don't think it's a matter of weakness, but it is there is a truth to the concept. There is strength in numbers, no doubt about it, because if a overpowering force comes against some individual, I, for one, would not, from a reasonable, rational standpoint, I would not pray to God. I just don't have that concept in my mind that someone who creates the whole universe would particularly have a concern for me. And it doesn't bother me, when I think about everything else that I hear about happening or witness it, it doesn't strike me that there is an almighty force that looks for us and after us individually. It's just the way it is. So we need to develop our ability to reason and use that reason and logic and ethics and morality to come up with that which we want to have a smooth functioning society. And I yield with that.
Well, your very definition of morality is, I gather, it's based upon the scriptures themselves. There are other groups who have a morality that they allow. Some people who practice cannibalism, their morality allows them to do that. So biblical morality doesn't allow us to do that.
Well, if you couple that to the non-aggression principle, it would not be permitted.
Okay, so you're bringing in another law. It's a non-aggression. Is it more advisable to say, well, we're going to have to think this out a little bit further, but we'll have a good working principle whereby we can come together as a group, however large or small that might be, for our security, and not only our security, but our sociability, to be social and kind and considerate for all people and to enjoy our existence together. I yield. Let me give you a biblical example of the Old Testament when God was operating and putting man under the law. They had a Ark of the Covenant was carried around the place where some of the holy things were located that they worshipped and reminded them of different things about God. And they were transported by, I think it was 4 men, one in each corner. And God said that whoever touched that Ark of the Covenant, they would die. Well, as they was transporting that Ark of the Covenant, there was a man who was standing near, and because of the way the men were carrying it, he was about to topple and fall. So he reached out to touch that Ark of the Covenant to steady it, to keep it from falling. He died. His heart was right, but he did something against the law. He died. Because God told him, said that whosoever touched the Ark of the Covenant would die. So that's a picture of the law and how that the law is not actually very fair in that case. And there are many other instances where the law is not fair. It doesn't judge the heart. It only judges the actions. And common law, biblical, does both.
Okay, go ahead. That law apparently was not man-made, apparently, huh? According to your perception.
That was a law set down by God, as the 10 Commandments were set down by God. Not man-made. The law that the common law follows is not man-made. It's laid down by God in the Word. Well, God saw that the judging of this man to death because he touched the Ark of the Covenant with a good heart, trying to study it to keep it from falling. This is an example of how the law is only a schoolmaster to teach us that these things are wrong.
Well, apparently this was not a universal understanding with regard to the people at that time about touching that. It must have been, or I've heard it could have been, an electrical device in which the guy got electrocuted. So this is not necessarily one of those indications about God just being so harsh in everything. About it may not be similar to the Sodom and Gomorrah thing, where supposedly Mrs. Lady turned around and looked back and turned a pillar of salt. Well, this I'm not so sure. If that story is true. If that story is true, which I doubt that it is, but if it is, I think that unless she had a leap of a jackrabbit, if she had not turned around, she would have still turned to a pillar of salt. So we need to bring whether something is written a couple thousand or 10,000 years ago, we got to bring it to present day realism, logic.
Let me bring it.
Go ahead. I yield.
Let me bring it to a present day situation.
Okay.
Now, if you used to study a flower, you would see a pattern of numbers of leaves. You would see the numbers of petals. You would see a precision in this flower. And if you see a tree leaf, you would see also provisions. You'd see something that was repeated. Placement of the petals is always the same. It isn't a random thing, and it has to do with numbers. It's very intricately put together. Now, the Word of God is the same way. That you're saying is 10,000 years old, 6,000 years old, 3,000 years ago, whatever your concept of God's revelation upon this earth. The very Word of God, you would study it, is a numerical, profound book put together just like a flower. As you would study it, you would see the handprint of God, and the numbers that are associated with each letter, each word, each phrase, and of the scriptures. I'd recommend a book called Number in Scriptures by E.W. Bullinger. It's a study of numbers in the Scripture. It's a magnificent work showing the hand of God, fingerprint of God, that is so perfect. Each word, each letter. It's like you pluck a row of corn out. Instead of having an even, now you got an uneven row of corn. All corn rows are even. And in order to have an uneven, you'd have to pluck it out while it was very small and let it grow. There are so many things in the Scriptures that are just like that. They're proved by numbers. And I encourage you, John, to study the Scriptures from the standpoint of it being perfect, and let God show you the fact of the matter. That's what He's pleased to do, and He does that by showing you things in His handiwork and His creation, and the trees and the flowers and the snowflakes and the frost and trend. Everything that He's made shows you His perfection. And it takes a lot more faith to believe that these things just happened, that a Creator made them. It's the same world system that we recognize as evil today is the one that's trying to destroy the faith of man. It's only by believing God and following what He shows us, we are without sin and not condemned by the law. The heart of man that is evil, that does things that need to be judged by the law. It is the evil heart the law addresses. Law is there to teach you, to show you the things that you do are not right. We should allow this law to do its job. But the law is not for a just man. A just man is one who is trusting Jesus Christ for his sins. That's had his sins covered by the blood of Jesus Christ. End of my preaching for now.
The law of man, the heart of man is evil, you say?
I don't say. The Scripture says that the heart of man is evil, yes.
Well, you must say it if you believe it. You must say that. Yeah, the heart of man is
desperately wicked. Who can know it?
So
doing things that you wouldn't even imagine. They're capable of that.
So your heart within you is evil. Is that correct?
No. The fleshly heart is evil. A good thing in me is not I, but Christ.
Oh, you don't have a heart within you, then.
So you're making the natural man where the evil heart is.
Are you a natural man?
No. I'm to reckon myself dead. I'm a new man in Christ Jesus.
Were you born of you were not born of a virgin, were you?
No. I need to be regenerated, saved by the Lord Jesus Christ. Because I was a sinner.
Well, I personally think that so many of these things are so open to so many questions that my point I made earlier, where we should realize the desirability of the common law and go for it instead of expecting to change the whole world to our individual perception of what God is, and the fact that something written 2,000 or more years ago, which has many questionable aspects in it, but as I've said before, there is some philosophic truth in the Bible, but in its entirety, there are many weaknesses too. And when you think about the fact that some of the people who wrote the book, some of their same people have their progeny has done some undesirable things in this world and continues to do so. That doesn't mean that all of them are guilty, not at all. But we do need to consider such. And
John, what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing in the world to you, John?
I would say reason, logic, love, appreciation of beauty, and so forth. I mean, natural beauty. Now, I realize that word natural, I never thought about it that much in the past, that people would take issue with that word natural. But of course, dangerous things can be visually beautiful, I suppose, until you realize what they are. But in the basis of what we observe and perceive over time, it proves to be beautiful from that perspective.
Okay, I'm going to give you a definition that God has given to the word in relationship to what you've just been speaking. Scripture calls you a natural man, that you're dead, trespasses and sin.
Say this again.
That there is no life in you. No spiritual life. You walk as a natural man.
Well, I'm not so sure that you can define that word spirit any more than I can. I have a nice dog. I named him Spirit Buddy. From that perspective, that is that intangible thing that we see in people and even animals, and who knows, possibly it's in plants that we have a little more difficulty to perceive it there. But it's intangible. and it's difficult to talk about it, but we can see it. We can see the results of it and so forth. So we don't have to claim we know everything about it, but it's that aspect of our natural being that we have difficulty describing. That's the way I look at it, and it doesn't bother me. It's just one of those ways of looking at things.
Well, I just shared with you what the Scripture says about yourself and any man who is not trusting Jesus Christ. There's only one way provided whereby a man may be saved or may be regenerated, made alive again. That's through by faith, accepting the shed blood of Jesus Christ. And that you have refused to do, and according to the Scriptures, you're a dead man.
Did Jesus Christ say that? Did Jesus Christ say at some time there that the kingdom of God is within you?
That is talking not to a dead man. That is talking to a man that has been quickened or made alive.
Well, I'm alive. How's
You're
that
talking
strike
about
you?
the natural man being alive. Spiritual.
Oh, who are you to tell me what I'm talking about?
Well, you talking? I'm telling you what the Scripture says about what you say.
Well, I'm telling you what I am and what I know about myself. And if Jesus Christ says the kingdom of God is within you, that's reasonable. If I can understand anything about Jesus Christ, that probably sounds pretty good. And I think you either haven't not read or ignored the possibility that Jesus Christ did not die in fact, and I guess you would probably respond that, well, he was resurrected. Well, possibly not.
Well, you speak just as a natural man that is unbelieving, and I cannot change that for you. And I give you to God, and He's the only one who can change you.
Well, if you give that to me, that's fine. I can live with that. It doesn't necessarily I believe everything you're saying here, but I like the idea of giving your thoughts to me and for me to accept or reject it. But we need that free choice of matters in all aspects of things, and
that's what God desires. He desires that you would worship and see Him for who He is, because that's what you see as true. If you do not see that, you do not seek the truth in relationship to that, it never comes to you. Why? God says He's faithful to every man. Is it because
I seek truth, and I appreciate it when I find it, and I have not found it in all things yet, and I don't think you have either.
The Bible refers to and speaks of Jesus Christ as being the truth.
Well, I have an open invitation for Him to appear with me anytime, and I will provide Him with a tasty cup of cocoa. I'll even put a marshmallow in it for Him. Yeah. But He has not yet.
It's amazing that all these words and all this conversation has been before, and you don't need any more of my words. You need some of God's words. So you just spend a little time reading the Bible and ask the Lord to show you the truth. That's what you need. For He is the truth.
Well,
and He will show you.
Well, speaking of the truth, gentlemen, I got to interrupt here for just a second. We've got about 10 more minutes here, and I have to squeeze in Heather. I hope you understand. I want to continue this conversation as we evolve in the future here. This is so helpful. I mean, people learn from this. This is amazing. Thank you very much, both of you guys, for coming and speaking your truths and what your feelings. Heather, are you still online here? Come in, Heather. Are you in?
Hear me?
Star 6. Oh, there you are.
Sorry,
Heather.
I had to figure out the right button. Hello.
No worries. Sorry I got you on here so late, but how are you?
Not bad. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Hey, would you mind giving us a little bio about yourself?
So I am the other half of Free the People, AK, with Chris. I am currently doing donuts in my truck with a bunch of kids after a hockey practice. So, but listening in, good friends with Wendell and trying to help him with the cause, and it's nice to hear different voices and different perspectives on things, and that's the whole point of this paper, is to get all those local voices and local ideas out there, get people interested, asking questions, and hopefully Chris and I can get out there and help you solve some of those or answer some of those questions for you.
Excellent. What's your background as far as?
So I have my BA in journalism, and I'm currently in the master's program at UAS for professional communication. But aside from that, when I graduated, I wanted to write in the newspaper things that weren't being covered. So I saw we were very one-sided in our coverage of stories, and I thought that it'd be nice to poke at the other side and see why it wasn't being explored or any of that. So I started writing my own stories and then found that they wouldn't publish them. So I said, well, hey, why don't I start my own paper and then publish my own stories and get some of the other voices in town and find out what people are asking about and what they want to know about. And there I found my preschool friend, Chris, and we put the paper together, and the rest is history, as they say.
You know, some people would think you're showing our age by saying our preschool where we met.
All right, so fondly I refer to Chris as my preschool friend because our daughters met in preschool, and so that's where I met Chris. So technically we are not much beyond 20-something, right, Chris?
Absolutely, and regressing every day, I think.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on tonight as well, and it's great that we have this another platform that we can reach out to the public. So that's pretty awesome. We've got the obviously still the paper, and then online we've got the website, and social media is very active with Free the People. We've definitely got a presence on Facebook and slowly starting to garner a bit more of a presence on YouTube by doing vlogs and different iPod posts and whatnot. So steadily climbing the ladder of new media.
Can you give some ways people can reach out to us?
So the best way to get us is probably email. I will say that I am the one that responds to the emails, and please do not expect an immediate response. Sometimes it takes me a little bit. I'm a mom first and foremost, so my life is consumed at the current moment with hockey. So it does take me sometimes a little bit to get back to you, but I will get back to you, and that's at freethepeopleak@gmail.com. And then our website is also the same, freethepeopleak.com. And anytime you want to, if you want to reach out to us, we can give you an imprint paper. You can download the paper from the website itself if you want. And as of right now, we just distributed our last printing local, but I am exploring other avenues to keep it printing. So, yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Do you mind expanding a little bit more what you mean by that last comment, the last printing?
So I found out this past weekend that the News Miner, who is our local paper, they used to print the paper for us because they had the printing press and the capabilities, and the price wasn't too bad. I pay about $4.50 every 2 weeks for the actual in-print paper. And so I found out Saturday that it will be going from $4.50 up to $2,500. So being that we run around and collect sponsors and donations and things like that, that was just a little bit, a lot of it out of our price range and capabilities. So I have, we had our last printing done yesterday through the Newsminer, and like I said, I'll be seeking alternative printing. Wendell was kind enough to give us a printer, so that might be an option, or also Anchorage. There's quite a few local, or not local, but independent publishers here in the state of Alaska, and so there are other resources that I can utilize as well. So we're not down and out. We're just seeking an alternative route.
Absolutely. So anybody that may have recommendations, help, want to donate in any shape, form, or fashion, please feel free to. Like she says, we are, it's usually us. As far as whenever it comes down to the bottom dollar, it's us. We're giving away to the community because somebody's got to. And, times are tough. I think everybody understands that times are tough. But you know what? If you have any appreciation for this and want to help grow this, you are part of it, because this paper is you. This is our community's paper. This isn't us. I mean, we're just the ones that facilitated it, and because somebody had to. So you know what? We stepped up to the plate. And if you appreciate people stepping up to the plate to do what's right, to give you a voice, please, please, please help in whatever shape, form, or fashion you may consider reasonable.
And on that note, I mean, this paper is for the people. I mean, this is the people's paper. We want to hear what you want to know about. We want, if you have a question that you can't get answered, tell us what it is. We'll look for it. That's our purpose. We'll figure out the answer. If not, we'll at least send you in the right direction. And hopefully send you in the right direction and not give you more questions than answers.
Exactly. Well, Heather, do you have any questions for the guests if they're still online there? I think Wendell may still be on, and Chuck and John, or anything before we close up.
May I?
Please.
Yes, this is Destry from the Michigan General Jury Assembly and the National Assembly.
Welcome,
I just wanted to give a shout-out and a hello, and I'll be moving to Fairbanks, Alaska within the next week or so.
We look forward to it.
I've talked with John several times in the past on the phone. I heard him talking a little while ago. I'm going to be working for a company, Black Gold Express. They've offered me a deal I can't refuse, and I'll be in Fairbanks. But we've been forming our jural assemblies across the states to redress grievances and return to self-governing. And we're just about to the point where we can start redressing grievances at national level.
Well, Destry, I got to say, we're definitely looking forward to having you up here local, because that means hopefully you'll be participating with our Alaska Jural as well.
Oh, yes. And I'm practically a walking common law book. I was listening to Wendell earlier, and I've grown up around people like Carl Miller and a few others like him. I could spend the next 12 hours rattling off court cases and this and that, and I've been down them roads.
Excellent. We look forward to having you as more of a local resource, not just as a national resource. Once you get up here, looking forward to chilling your toes off a little bit with us.
I'm one of the only guys I've ever known that's had the Coast Guard in a courtroom going after a judge for inland piracy.
Oh, wow.
Well, they operate in maritime law. The Coast Guard takes an oath to protect the people from pirates. I proved their piracy. That started a big mess in D.C.
I hope you'll expand on that sometime. That sounds like a whole show.
Yeah. Besides,
prosecutors in the courtrooms. This is going to be really fun. I can tell right now. This is going to be fun.
I'll give you an example. That prosecutor in the courtroom, he's not a trustee appointed by a bankruptcy court. He can't speak on the behalf of the bankrupt state. He's committing a felony, so remove him.
Who are you referring to there?
The prosecutor in the courtrooms. That's John. Hi, John.
Yeah. Hello, Destry.
I used to talk
Welcome.
to this Destry. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Anyways, we like taking out the prosecutors and bringing the bankruptcy into their courtrooms and leaving them civilly dead. But I'll be bringing a lot of this knowledge with me. I'll be joining in more. But on the other side of the coin, we've been reseeding our original self-governance, and resettling our land and nullifying the corporation under Liber Code, General Order 100, Article 1 of the Bill of Rights, Magna Carta. Caesar rises, the de facto must sit. What we're doing. We've got well over 1,200 people involved.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we look forward to giving more of a platform to expand this and get more participation and actual learning, something they don't teach in school anymore. You know, these civics, these life lessons by most of you guys.
You just hit the nail on the head. They're not teaching civics.
No.
All right. Well,
they're really good at
I'm going to give the floor back to you there. I just wanted to pop in, say hello, and kind of introduce myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much for
coming.
listening.
Chuck.
All right. Well, I think we're getting towards the end of the Chuck.
Yeah. I got back with you and listening. And was going to go over some more stuff that this actor as a Alaska State Trooper wrote down that I find rather comical. So, but apparently no more time to do that this evening.
I think it's actually going to shut itself off in 2 minutes, right at 7 o'clock. So before we go, I just wanted to say thanks, Heather, for coming on, and thank Chris and Heather so much for creating Free the People, AK. Hope people will go to it and donate and support you guys.
Thank you so much. It's been a labor of love, to say the least. So I think also before we conclude, John, would you like to tell us or tell everybody about the Common Law Group and about the next meeting? Anybody that would care to come and participate?
Me?
I'm sorry, Chuck, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Are you still on there, Chuck? Well, I guess not. So tomorrow night, Thursday night, at Denny's, 6 p.m., there will be a common law group meeting here in Fairbanks. Come with an appetite and ready to hear things you may have never heard, to participate and help understand, help learn, help train, help teach. You know, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to learn by sitting face to face, talking, seeing the spirits within each of us, and realize we're talking the truth to each other. And then when we have the truth, we share it, because that's what we do. We share.
Sounds good.
And with that, my brothers, my sisters, many blessings, much love, and much gratitude from up here, from a bunker north of Fairbanks, Alaska, getting covered in snow. I hope you all well and find yourself.
Returning the same to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, John.
Blessings. You're doing great work.
Thank you so much. And I think with that, we'll conclude the call. We'll see you all next Wednesday, Lord willing. Goodbye.
Goodbye.